Oh, Salt House, this has been just a really energizing series. And thank you so much for, I've just loved hearing about all the experiments during the week. It's just amazing. It's amazing when we take risks and we embody the teachings of our Rabbi Jesus and we trust our good and generous Creator. Things just start happening. So I love it. Thank you. Thank you. And before we start, I just want to give everyone a heads up here that today's dojo teaching includes a story of abuse. And it's not graphic, but it might not be appropriate for maybe sensitive listeners or children, and it could be triggering for those who've experienced abuse. So please, I care about you. I want you to take care of yourself. Skip ahead if you need to, okay? Okay, so thus far in the dojo, we've already experimented in identity and community, our intimate connection to our Creator and to each other. We've experimented in purpose. What am I here for? In security. How will I survive? How will I thrive? And then lastly, this week, today, this morning, we look at freedom and peace. What does Jesus have to say about freedom and peace? And this is what Jesus is praying when he says, save us from the time of trial. Deliver us from evil. So through his teachings, through his life, Jesus trains us, his apprentices, to confront evil, to confront abuse. So Alex has given me permission to tell this part of her story today. And I am so grateful for her brave witness. So thank you. Alex had just turned 9 the summer that it happened. And each summer, she, her older brother Greg, and her mom went to stay with her granddad, who lived in an enormous house. And if you weren't careful, you'd get lost in this house. There were so many twists and turns and staircases and guest rooms. But Alex had developed a very special skill. She knew with precision the layout of the entire house. She knew which hallway led where, and the location of every secret hiding place and exit. Alex had developed this special skill because she always had to be on guard against her granddad and aware of where she could be trapped or cornered in this house. So when she and her brother Greg were getting ready for bed that night in their room, changing their pajamas, Alex was vigilant about their safety. She had noted that there was a mirror on the wall across from the bed, which meant that she could stand watch for the opening of the bedroom door. But the house seemed just a little too quiet. And looking up, she saw Greg's face frozen in fear. It was the closet. The closet door was opening. They had not thought to check the closet, and the monster was coming out of it. Even though Greg was a year older than Alex and a good deal bigger, he was a much quieter child. And Alex looked to Greg to see what he would do, but he was still paralyzed. Alex had never fought back. But at this moment, without even thinking about it, she jumped onto the edge of the bed. And she yelled, "If you don't leave us alone, I'm going to start screaming. I'm going to scream, and I'm going to scream, and I'm never going to stop." And standing on the bed, she was now eye to eye with the giant. What makes you think anyone is going to come to get you? Alex knew that he was right. Not even her mother, who was 2 rooms down the hall and had certainly heard her yelling, would come to get them. Her mother had suffered the same evil her entire childhood. She feared the monster as much as they. Alex only knew to do one thing. "I don't care," she said. "I'm going to start screaming, and I'm never going to stop." There was a long silence as this 9-year-old girl stood eye to eye with evil. And then, slowly, he left the room. Friends, there are great evils in the world that require an even greater deliverance and an even greater deliverer. And I can tell you today that Alex sits across from people that have experienced great abuses and is able to offer therapy and hear their pain without flinching, without turning away. And I would say about Alex that she has not stopped screaming. She even screams on behalf of her clients. She screams out against the robbing of innocence. She screams out to God for deliverance, to the same God who heard the enslaved people in Pharaoh's Egypt, the same God who heard the exiles who had lost their song, to the same God who raised Jesus from the pit of hell and delivers. But I gotta ask, Salt House, have you stopped screaming? There are forces at work in the world and even within us that wish to sabotage the generative work of God's Spirit. So, don't think, Salt House, that we're too enlightened not to have to deal with real evil. If we're not engaged with God in the combating of evil, it might just mean that we're coasting on our own privilege and power. It might mean that. If we have stopped screaming, it might just mean that we're at the cause or that we benefit too much to raise a voice. So have you stopped screaming? You know, when you pray the prayer, save us from the time of trial, deliver us from evil, you pray it with acute specificity. It is not generic. You pray it from the very lines of your story. You pray it with specific monsters in mind. So aren't you curious about how your story uniquely shaped the way that you partner now with God in combating evil? Alex knows it. Do you know it? Do you know it? Or have you stopped screaming, church? Have you found your scream yet? And there is plenty to scream about. Racial injustice, ecological abuse, child abuse, poverty, clean water, LGBTQ rights, immigration, health care, corporate greed, housing. Have I named yours yet? I got another 20 down here. So maybe you have not begun to scream yet. Maybe you have. But let today be the day. Let's just mark it on our calendars right now. It's Sunday, August 29th, 2021 is Start to Scream Day. So I hope that your Rabbi Jesus is putting a little scream in you right now. We've provided some ways for you to experiment, to find your scream, to experiment with your scream in the bulletin. So you can go there now. Choose one to try out this week. Choose one to experiment with this week. I know that you have done good work this month. Oh my goodness. You tried so many new things. I mean, some of you have grown in just unexpected ways. Some of you have gotten unstuck, discovered such intimacy with God, your Creator, crossed barriers, made new relationships, found meaningful purpose, have trusted God in really vulnerable ways. Oh my gosh, it has been beautiful. It has been beautiful. Let's not stop there. We're not going to stop there. And this might be our last week of the Jesus Dojo series, but it is not the last week of experimenting in the way of Jesus, because Salt House has always been a place of practice, a place of apprenticeship in the way of Jesus, a school of love, as we call it. So that is just who we are. That's who we are, people. And this is who Jesus is calling us to be. So keep practicing, Salt House. Keep practicing. Amen.